Welcome to another edition of Inside the Headset with the Palestine High School head football coach Kyle Ralph and special teams coordinator, wide receiver coach Wes Anderson. Coach, we've got a second half against Zionsville in 2018 coming up today. Watched the first half yesterday and go into the locker room with a 16-7 lead. And like we talked about yesterday, felt pretty good about how we played. I think anytime you hold them to 7.5 is a major accomplishment. So as we go in here, I know you said you were pretty happy, but if we go back to the Decatur game where it was 28-14 and you talked a lot about this being that second half being a situation where we had to get the time off the clock as quickly as we could and as efficiently as we could. Does that apply here? And I guess my secondary question to that is, strategically, what's the plan here in the second half?
Yeah, I think you're dead on. Like I mentioned a little bit yesterday, they had scored points in bundles essentially for most of the year. I think at the time they had one of the 10 highest scoring offenses in the state. We were up in there. I want to say we actually might have been number one at this point, and then they were somewhere, kind of around that top 10, and they're playing. Like I said, they're about to be a 6A school here in the next couple of months in this next cycle, and at the time, obviously they essentially were, but their schedule is essentially all 6A schools. So they're playing Avon, Brownsburg, Noblesville, all that stuff, and so. They had been scoring a lot of points against some really good teams. I think when they knocked off Avon, who was number one in 6A, they scored 35, I think, maybe on them, 38, something like that. It was a bunch. And then, like I said, the Brownsburg game was a shootout that they also probably could have won, but they had a couple mishaps there and gave up some pick sixes, but I want to say they scored like 50 something against Brownsburg, who was a really highly ranked 6A school as well. So, the game absolutely at this stage is not over. And again, to think that you're going to hold a team this good to 7 is not really likely. I think, again, a lot of people on Twitter yesterday had kind of reached out to me and had remembered this game because of, what all it meant and how big of a game it was. Like I said, extremely hyped up for a lot of reasons. Two highly ranked teams, a team that had, beaten us the year before when we were on a little bit of a down year. And, it happened. Again, unfortunately, for those who don't understand in Indiana that are watching this from a different state, I guess, Indiana, everybody makes the playoffs regardless of your record, which there's a good and a bad to everything, but I really think it's a good idea. But everybody makes the playoffs, and when that happens, it really essentially is kind of like the lottery. You have your sectionals divided up well in advance, so you know what your sectionals are going to be usually around May of the redistribution year and stuff. And so you know who's going to be in there. But your team name gets pulled out essentially through like the lottery ping pong balls. So the little ping pong balls pop up out of the little machine, and they've got your names written on the ping pong balls. And then however they pop up out of there is how you get your bracket assigned. Essentially, they just fill the slot in as the ping pong ball pops up out of there. So our sectional in this particular year had a couple of teams that were really struggling, and then it had us and Zionsville, both of which were extremely highly ranked and talented. So, I think that just provided a little bit of, this is a collision course that's going to happen, and the matter of fact is when it's going to happen. And the real shame of this game is it gets played in a sectional semifinal round, and in my opinion, it's really a state championship caliber game is what fans were getting, and it's in week 2 of the playoffs, which is just crazy. So, that added a lot to it. But, yeah, I mean, that's obviously a long answer to a little bit of a short question. But there were so many things that went into these decisions of how we want to approach the second half. And this game was really similar. The weather, I think, had helped us a lot. It hurt us too. I mean, I think it hurt both teams, and we had some really good passing stuff in the plan for this week that we really just never can get to. And I know they like to throw the ball quite a bit, and I think the weather has hampered their passing game as well. So, like I said, our offensive line have been playing really well up to this point. We're getting good surges up front, and this game now is going to kind of become, again, a way of how do we keep efficiently moving the ball and don't give their offense opportunities to essentially do what we've done to people, which is score in flurries, and that's kind of what they've done as well. We really had to manage that, and the best way to do it is don't give them the ball unnecessarily. Don't let them have it, enough times to essentially score. So it's going to get real tight here, but a lot of credit goes to our kids. Every time that Zionsville made some plays and had a little momentum, our kids answered right back and were tremendously resilient. It's a really, really good second half of football you're about to watch here, and we come out with a big sectional win.
Well, let's get this thing going here. A lot of plays here in the second half. So let's get to it. Nice little offsides penalty there. So we missed the actual opening kickoff here, but they're going to start about the 19. I think they had a penalty on this return as well that backed them up.
Yeah, I mean, we really, again, like I said yesterday, when we came in the locker room, there wasn't a need to really change a whole lot. We just kind of recapped a couple of things and made sure the kids were assignment clear and pretty much just went out and played ball. There's not a ton that we hadn't expected. The running game stuff was something that, they're going to get another nice one here, but the running game stuff was something that we had told the kids, look, you just got to keep managing it. It's not going to be our focus. We wanted them to run the ball and eat more clock and get impatient with stuff. We could not give them the backbreakers like they had become accustomed to. So, it's another good run by this young kid. This kid's going to, I mean, really, he's a great player, but he's going to be something really special. That running back is really talented.
A little screen here of sorts to Tommy Fawcett here in the flat. Kind of almost a bubble type look here, just on a little arrow route.
Yeah, using that big guy to block. Same thing though. I mean, it's 4 yards, and we're more than willing to give up 4 right now. I think we missed one in there, but
we commit a penalty there. Yeah, we missed one.
I think we missed a play. Yeah, I think we missed a play in there. The other thing too about this half that you're going to probably see, we get them into a couple 4th and shorts, and again, we're playing good ball, and I remember that some of their 4th down tendencies were really, really heavy, and I called a specific blitz or play. Oh, this is the one that got us right here. They chunk a big. This is the only time. This was one of the routes the entire week that really, really concerned us here. We call this route sail. So, again, that big tight end, that SEC tight end, is such a huge mismatch for 99% of high school football players. I mean, you don't have guys to cover kids like him. And this route for them was such a great route, and we had practiced this all week long. And Cade just over carries this vertical from number 2. It's a great route. We run a route essentially exactly similar to this. A lot of people do it, and it's commonly called sail. There's lots of different ways to run this type of a concept here, but they run it essentially a pretty traditional way with kind of a vertical, a post, and then a corner that runs behind all that. And when that big SEC tight end is the corner route, I mean, boy, you've got some problems. So we had practiced this all week because we knew it was going to give us trouble. They dial it up here, and we don't execute it well. That's just a great play, and not great by us. We should have been able to handle this, but boy, it's tough to know when it's coming, and they hit it really big right here.
I remember we repped this exact concept so much that week. I mean, because like you said, this was the one I think personally, this was probably the play that they ran that concerned me the most.
Yeah, I honestly think we actually did with the DBs that week, we did a sales segment where we just practiced this for about 10 minutes. And then when we did 7-on-7, I mean, this play was about every third or fourth play. It felt like we were dialing this up again to keep testing the kids. So, they really have done a great job in practice with it. It's the heat of the game, and when we just don't quite get it there. So here's Tommy in the backfield again. We do a really nice job identifying him here and making a play and buckling ourselves down in the red zone. Here was the hard part about that play, though, because that kid's so big. They used to run a sail type play as well down in the red zone, and they essentially just lob it up to him. So he's down there at the wing again. I mean, we're on high alert here as well, because I really think that every time they had used that play, it was a touchdown. I mean, it was for 6 points. You couldn't stop it. Either one of the two other Division I kids pretty much burned you on like a slant rub type route, or they just lobbed it up to the DeCourcy kid, the SEC tight end kid in the corner of the end zone. It was like, well, we're going to lose that jump ball. So
nice play by Maxon right there.
So this is something that was different, that we had seen them run a little bit, but they're going a lot more to in this game, and it kind of broke one of their major tendencies here. They're going to run essentially like a same side power here, and this is something that again, they'd shown some pullers and stuff throughout some of the tape that we had, but a lot of times they were coming across the quarterback's face on those things. They had a little bit of, you've seen that kind of the split flow zone and all the other stuff. So this one was different, that actually throws us for a bit of a loop here. You're going to see that right guard pull around, and the running back's actually on the opposite side of the puller. So he actually bends this thing back and runs a same side power. A really nice little change of pace for them, honestly. We stop it here, but they're going to get us on it a little bit later on here when we kind of gamble that he's going to go cross face. But, it's a good play. Good play by us, but in a good play designed by them. I really do like it. We just get a little bit of pressure there. This is actually a great play by Riker. This is on my clinic film. A lot of teams run a boatload of man-to-man down here in the red zone. We do, but we also don't. We do like to change our coverages up still, and our normal, again, we kept a couple coverages in our back pocket for this game that we had worked on but never just executed in a game, and this is what we call our razor check. So normally to trips we play a different form of quarter half. In this instance, that essentially gets flipped completely upside down, and we're going to play what a lot of people would recognize as cover 2 with the outside two most guys, and then the third guy is going to be an immediate hook curl.
Let me go back here a little bit and try to get us away from the goal line so we can kind of –
this play,
because I kind of want to draw some of this up. This is another good example of it here, actually.
Yeah, this plays the same thing.
just so we can kind of get a better look at this. So what you're talking about here is where we're going to play this cover 2. So, I mean,
Right.
you
So
keep talking, and I'm gonna.
the guy at the bottom of the screen, Riker, on this check is essentially going to play the flat. And normally this is not something that we do. We have a lot of different assignments to 3x1, but this is one I've talked about in my clinics quite a bit, and is really something I think pretty cool that we do. So he's going to play the flat, and essentially he's going to behave like this is cover 2, which in that his assignment will be to play the flat. The guy next to him then is going to play deep half on that side of the field, which again is a little bit unconventional, but with some of the height that their kids had, we felt like that was going to be best for us to get some hands on the Hull kid who's at the bottom that was kind of the Big 12, Big 10 offered kid, get some hands on him and then have help over the top. Also put one of our taller kids in the deep half in the event that, like, DeCourcy just takes off and runs deep. So we've got those two things. And then Brody, who's the adjuster, is going to roll over to the trip side, and he is going to play really a lot of different jobs, but essentially he is going to play seam, hook, curl, and then kind of pattern read the number 3 receiver. So he's got a lot going on in that position. And we also have the linebacker over there to potentially play the seam, hook, curl, which is why Brody then is going to kind of pattern read 3. Maxon then becomes the free player on the opposite side of the field, though technically he's got deep half. That's his job essentially. So within his responsibilities, there's freedom, but his job is to really help cover a massive area of the field on that opposite side. And then the corner at the top is essentially going to play man-to-man. So really what we're doing here is kind of playing like a version of cover 6. We're just getting to it from the stack in a creative way without really having to change a lot of the box, like the linebackers' jobs and stuff. We're kind of making the DBs get stressed by those changes, which is fine. So
I want to talk for just a second here about kind of how this is an adjustment for us, and I want to talk about a little bit about quarter half traditionally, and why this is different for the non-coaches in the room. So
normally we play quarter half to trips. That's usually what our auto check is for the most part.
So in that situation, why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit and talk about some of those responsibilities while I draw this up.
So on a normal trip scenario, like one of our just consistent auto checks is to essentially play what we call robber, which is quarter half. And again, we essentially stole that, years ago. I was trying to find ways to, help better cover stuff with the defensive backs and what we could do. And I thought a great solution was what a lot of people do in like the even fronts, the 4-2s and the 4-3s, where they'll use that opposite safety, maybe even if you want to call them potentially a rover, sometimes depending upon what your scheme looks like, if you're 4-2-5, but they would use that guy, that other safety would be what they would call a robber player, where his job was to essentially protect the weak side of the field, but he would rob the third vertical. So one of his reads was to actually look across the field. And if the number 3 receiver ran a vertical, what we call a bender route, where he's going to cross the free safety's face to the opposite hash, he would help pick that up and quote unquote rob that third vertical. And, a lot of stacked teams don't do that just because the structure of the defense doesn't really allow it. So I found a couple ways that we could get that done. And essentially in that structure, the quarter half structure is the corner to the trip side is going to play off of the ball, and he's got that quarter of the field. The dragon, which in this scenario would be Cade, is going to walk up and he plays the flat then. And then Brody, who's the adjuster, would walk over number 3, and he will play the other quarter of the field to the strong side. And Maxon then has the deep half on the opposite side of the field, and weak side or boundary corner is going to play man-to-man down there. So, again, it frees up one of our players in that scenario. Again, Maxon or Cade. If Cade were on the weak side, they have lots of jobs to do. Their run support, their swing or flare support. They got to take the route away from the single receiver side. But it's been really, really good for us. And this was really taking that and then inverting it some where we're not giving them the same look all the time. And that was really important because with the RPOs they throw and the talent they had, just giving them consistency, they're just going to pick you apart. So this play here is one of those change-ups where we checked down to Razor on the goal line because we thought it was better for us. And here was part of why we did this as well. And again, I think a lot of people think like, is it really this much thinking go into stopping a bubble? It does, because their bubble, if you look at what's happened now, their bubble has killed people this year. Mm-hmm. Because when they line up in this, what they want you to do is what we do and what a lot of teams do, which is go ahead and bring that alley player up there nice and tight, and they're going to flip their personnel around, and they're going to put DeCourcy at number 2, where usually he plays number 3 as that wing you've seen him at. Now he goes and plays number 2, and he literally had just mauled, because that's usually your safety. You know, that's usually like a 170 or 180 pound kid. He had absolutely just mauled other teams' safeties, and they would throw bubble for 30 yards because he's just out there killing these little guys. You know, I mean, just putting them to work out there. So, you know, we essentially said we are not letting that happen. Like, that is absolutely not going to happen to us. So when they get lined up, again, all the different things that our kids had to be aware of, you know, where was Fawcett at? What's their alignment like? What are the checks to this? You know, where, you know, is DeCourcy in there to wing? Is he number 3? Is he number 2? Whatever. This was one of the things that we had talked to our kids. Listen, we cannot call Robert to pure trips here because he will just beat us into the ground and we'll never stop a bubble. It won't happen. And we couldn't allow that. So this, again, is a great job by our kids of seeing what has been presented to them and having us as coaches having an appropriate answer to a problem, you know, to provide the kids with a solution, but then them executing it. So you can see what happens here. You know, Cade backs off of DeCourcy here because we roll to the check, and he actually ends up blocking almost nobody. Like, we literally gave him no one to block. That was the point. We wanted them to waste him on this play. And then Riker disengages for the bubble because that's his job and just smacks it. And that's a great play. I mean, it really is. And again, you think, Coach, it's a bubble. You stop the bubble. But I'm going to tell you what, there is a lot that goes into this particular play and shutting it down, you know, throughout the course of a week, the preparation. And, you know, again, you wouldn't think that, but I'm telling you what, we spent an exorbitant amount of time on all these different things.
Well, no surprise there. There's 31, probably good from about 75.
Yeah, you know, this was interesting too because he had a little bit of struggle in warm up. I forgot that. I did have someone did ask me yesterday, the one series that we had gone for it on 4th down where it was 4th and pretty manageable still, but we were probably in Alex's field goal range. You know, I think I actually had a lot of feedback on this game yesterday via text message, and one of the people had asked, you know, how come you didn't pull up for a field goal from that one spot where we ended up coming up just short. We threw that swing to Charlie on that 4th down that we had Colby. Anyway, you know, here's the thing, and it's a great question, and it had certainly crossed my mind because Alex could have made that kick from there. The other text messages, though, answered the question for me. so many people obviously remember this game for its importance, but the number one thing from some of the fans that, you know, I know, and maybe your parents that sent me a message of, you know, they're loving the series was, and even my own mother sent me a message about this, is how bad the weather was. And the
Yep.
film doesn't do it justice. You actually can see a little bit if you look in the light where the lights are shining, like just to the left of the goalpost right now, you can see the rain coming down in sheets right now.
Yep.
This film, because we got a nice HD camera, doesn't do justice to how terrible this weather was. I mean, the wind was swirling, the rain was absolutely driving. You know, could we have kicked a field goal there? Yeah. Truthfully, from that distance, with the way the weather was, the likelihood of hitting that, and Alex is a great kicker, were pretty low. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And I remember even in pregame, Kropp had struggled, and Freeman, their kicker, had struggled as well. Yeah. But yeah, I was kind of remembering that as fans said that, and to tell you how bad this weather was, and also to tell you how great Dragon Nation is. We had more fans at this game than they did, and our visitors bleachers, the small ones you see over there in the film, were absolutely jam-packed. And you've seen the tents. People brought tents in to sit underneath the tents in the stands. It was that bad. A bunch of our fans, because there was nowhere to sit, they actually went over to the Zionsville homestands because they didn't bring many people to this game. We brought a ton. And our fans, I didn't know this, I didn't know it was them at the time, but our fans actually were huddled around the press box because they have a massive press box, and it was almost like a windshield. And they were sitting on like the edges of the press box to try to avoid the wind and the driving rain. So, yeah, about every single person who messaged me on that said they will never forget how bad the weather was for this.
Oh, it's
game.
awful.
And
awful.
We played in a couple that are worse, but not a major big time ranked playoff game. You know, we've had some real bad weather ones that, quite frankly, people just want to forget. This is a game you're never going to forget, and the weather was certainly part of it because it was tough.
You know, the other thing too is we come back here, and I'll kind of keep moving. The other thing, unless you're indoors, not all field goals are created equal. And one of the things that happens as we're moving the ball, this is going 11 yards deep. Yep, that's
that one landed
kick
back
that to Brownsburg. So as we come back on offense here, there's your Illinois, and I'll come back to this in a second.
This is the play that Zach's just misread a couple of times. That you can go ahead, but yeah, you're going to see this one. He finally gets a nice, clean, clear read. We widen that tackle out a tad bit to help Zach out, and boy, we really get a big chunker here off the first play, which is great. So yeah, go ahead and go.
So as we're
playing Jane, you can roll it.
As we're driving the ball, each possession, usually Alex Kropp is kind of in my hip pocket, and he's kind of following us down the sideline, and you know, we're kind of having conversations as we, especially when we get on the other side of the 50, and you know, based on what the wind is at that time, you know, based on what the wind, you know, if it's rain in this game, what the rain's doing, you know, we're kind of having that conversation, and I always ask him in every drive, what yard line do you want? You know, what, you know, and when I ask him that question, I want to know, what yard line do you feel comfortable kicking a field goal from? And, you know, sometimes when it's a season opener and it's August and it's 80 degrees and the wind's not blowing, you know what? It's probably about the 30. And in this game, when it's 30 degrees and the wind is 30 miles an hour in your face and it's raining sideways, you know what? It might be the 15-yard line. And those are conversations that he and I have. And you know what? You and I both agree that we are going to honor what he says. And if he says, Coach, I got to be on the 15, you know, because the wind's blowing so bad. If we kick it from the 20, I don't think I can make it. Well, you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to pull up from the 20 then. Because that doesn't make any sense. And, you know, if he's not comfortable, then there's no point in running him out there. And I don't say it to be critical of him. It's that way with every kicker.
No, you're 100% right. And that's, you got to listen to your kids.
Yeah, he has always been that's one of the things I think that he's been best at is he has a realistic expectation for himself, because there are some kids that go, whatever, dude, we're on the 40, let's pull up, let's give it a shot.
That was one thing great about him, and our kicker Spencer before him was great at as well. Is they have a very set and efficient warm up routine of the hashes, the distances, and where I'm gonna, so that he can tell you by the end of pregame, where he's good from and where he likes it from, and some of that does. Yeah, I do remember those conversations on the headset. There was a few times where I've said, Wes, what's he think? And you're like, he's not feeling it today. He pretty much said that he can't make these. Oh, okay. Yep. Well, we're gonna go for it then. I mean, if your kicker doesn't have some confidence, I know there's some games where he's really struggled. And he kind of a little bit down on himself and just doesn't feel like he can make them. And so I'm not going to force him to go out there and do it.
Right. And so in a situation like this, when the weather's terrible, it's cold, it's just windy as all get out. And
here we go.
Yeah. We're going to need to be, pretty close, just to make sure that he's comfortable and we feel good. We're going to make a kick. Like you said, there's no point in
until this point in the game, by the way.
Yeah.
I do remember too, the weather was supposed to be so bad for this night that a good friend of mine gave a wonderful donation, and Rush mailed us this. He'll remain nameless for right now, but a very good friend of mine, Rush, mailed us essentially a ball dry agent that he
had zone there
that he had used previously, and we kept it in this garbage bag to essentially dry the balls out as fast because by halftime, all the towels that we had were ruined. I mean, they were just ruined. Trying to keep the towels dry and the balls dry, and we were changing a football every 2 plays, which you can't see on this thing, but boy, it was nightmarish. It was just nightmarish. So we got a good little drive going again here. We're keeping on the ground. You saw that bad snap from the wet ball that happened, and we come back with a little quarterback outside zone and just get stuffed a little bit right there.
This is going to be the post corner here. It is a nice little route by Rowdy here.
Yeah,
into the post, back to the corner.
So we get a little bit of a mismatch, and quite frankly, you saw it in the Decatur game. Rowdy was a great big body on the backside, and we were a good heavy running team, and so there wasn't a huge, we didn't throw the ball a ton, and especially in this weather. But Eric was a major mismatch for a lot of people because he's 6'3", and I think at the time he's 170 some odd pounds here, and he can really jump and get up. So he was a big mismatch for a lot of people, and we get him matched up on their really small corner here a couple of times. And I think this actually might be another one of our plays where I check it. So what I wanted here was I wanted what we call Cobra, and I wanted him to get over the middle of the field because Eric runs that route really well. So he's supposed to run kind of a corner jab and then a post, and I wanted him to get over to the middle of the field because they hadn't been protecting it. But when they come out and line up, fortunately they're all standing literally right next to me on our hash here. I see that they haven't lined up that way, and I holler out to switch the play to essentially what we call Poco here, which is just a post corner, and he does a really nice job of kind of jabbing this post sharp and then getting right to the sideline. Zach throws a good ball, and Rowdy makes a nice catch, and we pick up a really big 3rd and long there, and big boy pounds it in next play with some. I mean, really, again, we considering what they're giving us, and considering that we practiced so many different fronts and looks throughout the week. And again, I mentioned this is why I love the zone so much. Our offensive line is really getting after it in this game. And there was a lot of pride on the line, and they were all young kids the year before, but they had gotten embarrassed in 2017 by Zionsville. And again, they were better than us, and that's fine. But our offensive line, there was a lot of pride on the line in this game, and they're playing really good football. I mean, this hole is an absolute monster. You can see that we use that jet motion again, which has been great for us here. This time we go to the same side as the jet motion, and we're really – I mean, that's really been a nice play. The timing of it slows everything down, stretches them out a little bit more horizontal for us, and yeah.
Here's the guy that would fill it right here.
Yeah.
If we don't motion.
And as a side note, we do give jet sweep some. It's not like we're just doing this and no one has to. I mean, we do run jet sweep quite a bit.
He's out here looking at this.
There's been some big plays on jet yearly when people don't honor this. So,
well, I'm gonna tell you what. I circled it a minute ago. This double team here by Keel and Cotterman. They just put this middle linebacker into the ground.
Yeah, this
that makes the whole play right there.
This is one of our better offensive line performances overall. I mean, we really get after these guys pretty good. And, Cotterman's another great story for us too. We've got that offensive line up there is really good. And Alex was one of those kids too that a lot of people don't talk about, but his development from his junior to senior year was spectacular. And really, I think is a big – without him, we probably can't win the whole thing. He had such a great senior year and started some as a junior, lost his job, and we met in the offseason, and I pretty much told him exactly what he needed to do to be a real contributor and win that position and have it be his own. And I'll tell you what, he did everything I asked him to do and more. And, he had a wonderful senior season and plays real well in this game here and just has a tremendous playoff run. So, again, that's one of those senior, kind of like the Jacob Hockett and, some of the other kids, Chris Gould and stuff that we talked about, that a lot of people, they get overshadowed a little bit by some of the stars that we've had. But, man, without some of those kind of quote-unquote role player pieces, we're not as good a football team as we are. And Alex was an absolutely instrumental part of the 18 group.
So we go for two here. 22-14. No, 22-10. It's 22-10 right now. So we're up 12. So we go for the 2 to try to go up 14. I keep my special teams depth chart with me, laminated. It's in my back pocket. But I also keep the go for 1 or go for 2 chart. So I think in the vast majority of games, where you score in 7s or 3s, some of those decisions get easy. But when you throw a safety in there, and now the numbers get wacky, and the margins get odd. Some of these math problems, I think, can create some interesting strategical situations, and I think this is one of those where so we go up 12, and I remember the conversation. I said to you, I said, I think we should go for the 2 here, and you agreed, and we don't get it, but
no,
just kind of one of those interesting things that the safety caused. Not that I'm upset about having the safety. I'll gladly take it. But
no, they cover this a whole lot better than I thought they would too. This guy, one guy got underneath. Normally in these scenarios, they had brought extreme pressure, and I gave them if you kind of look at it, I gave them our heavy set, which we ran the ball from this year. We ran the ball from this about 80% of the time. So I got the matchup I wanted. I got Colby on what we felt was their weakest defensive back. And I gave them the formation that pretty much said, we're going to run the ball with Charlie right down your throat for 2 here. Normally in these circumstances, they went to a heavy package as well and pretty much played cover 0. And really what I felt was going to be, they're going to bring 9. I mean, they're going to bring 9. They're not even going to probably worry about the tight ends. They're bringing 9, and they don't. So, again, I make a call that I feel is best for the scenario, and that linebacker gets out underneath that window. The thing about high school that's different, by the way, if Zach throws a pick here, which he's trying to avoid, he throws this ball too high. which is part of the weather as well. But he sails this one a little bit and doesn't really give us a chance. But, really on a 2-point conversion like this, when we've got kind of a solo tag to just beat one person, he really should just hum this thing in there, because if they pick it off, they can't score it. In high school football, a recovered fumble or an interception on a 2-point conversion is a dead ball. So Zionsville can't get 2 points out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may as well just zoom it in there and try, because you can't flip the board and give them 2 if they pick it off and take it back for a touchdown. So, and we've actually done that on our defense to a couple people before.
Mm-hmm. So 22-10 now. I think this is the last drive of the third quarter here.
Yeah.
There's kind of the wing counter look where they spring one.
It's a good play for them. And again, they're catching us in a light box defense. You can see we're only playing 5 in the box here. That linebacker to the bottom is actually not in the box. His job is to stay outside of DeCourcy and make sure he can't run up the field untouched. So when they run him across the formation, it kind of it pretty much negates that player. And we're pretty much again, like I've said 1,000 times, we're robbing ourselves in one aspect of this game to make sure that they can't just hammer us in the other. So, all these running yards are, 1, eating clock, and 2, they're kind of playing right into our hands with the fact that at some point they're going to get impatient here. We've just got to make sure they got to keep moving the chains slowly. So
a little one back power there.
I think this might be this kid's only catch of the night. One or two.
I think you're right.
We really did a nice job in the passing game in this game. And again, I do think that the weather had helped a little bit, but our coverage was really sound. We really had done a good job and didn't give them the big over-the-top plays.
Mm-hmm.
There's your split. Again, we make.
Kind of stumbles there.
So yeah, I mean, both teams right now. I mean, again, the thing about this is there's not tons to talk about. There's some little things but this is 2 really good football teams just playing good old slugfest football. I mean, just coming at each other, kind of playing football the way it was meant to be played right now. And I mean, it's a great game. It may not be a great game for like, commentary, like, Kirk Herbstreit. This may be a tough game for old Kirk to sit in the booth and call one on College Game Day. But I'm going to tell you what, this was a really good football game.
4th and a yard here.
Yeah, this is one where we gamble and they get us. They run that same side power. We this is the one I was referencing earlier, that they were going to get us on here coming up soon. So they stick with that. And again, this had not been their MO. So I call a play to essentially overload the side of the formation where the running back is going to go, because that had been their tendency. And they call this same side power here, and he bends it back to the side he's on, and they hurt us. So it happens, I mean, that's the way it goes. Their center also really does a great job on that play, cleaning up the A gaps, which if you're going to run power and you got a center like that, you're already ahead of the game. So
this running back's a good player, man.
Yeah.
He is really smooth.
Matter of fact, I think the other kid, the kid that was the older kid, transferred out after this year because the younger kid, was right. I mean, really ended up taking his job. But
yeah, nice year this year too, didn't he?
Yeah.
In 19.
Yeah, he ran for like 1,700 yards as a sophomore in that conference. That's impressive.
It's a little bit different look at something they do a lot of here. He's now an attached tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Something they don't do a lot.
We do a really good job on this one here. Kyle does a good job of just staying home and being patient, and then really making a great play here. Really good discipline by Kyle on that play.
We're looking right here.
And we've got him walled off, so we're in a good spot. This actually was one of – so this is what a lot of announcers screw up and call an RPO. It is not. This actually is a play-action pass here. They did a great job of this one throughout the year. They're going to ride this kind of inverted veer outside zone. They're going to ride this thing out, and we practice this one a bunch during the week because what they try to do then is hit Tommy or Jordan going – extremely vertical up that right-hand side, and he's essentially reading your safety here. And as soon as they would bypass him, this ball is getting launched in most of their games. So this is a play-action pass. This is not an RPO. It was a good play for them, though, throughout the games that we had, at least. I think they
You get an outside zone here on 3rd and 14.
Yeah.
13. And they get probably about half.
It's a really nice job by our kids here. That's just a quick little sit down, just a quick little curl to the chains there, and we do a really nice job of getting on that one.
So nice stand by our defense here.
I think we're right at the end of the third quarter right now. We're about out of it here. We don't make a good read on that one either. Yeah, we don't make a good read on that one either. That one should have been a give, but.
So here it is again. Boy, is this not a great call. Remember this one? He's got that in his belly.
Yeah. Yeah, this one, well, it's not a good read. He's thrown this ball to Riker a bunch of times now. Now, the bonus of this is we get the information now that they're starting to jump this, what we kind of called like Y pop. They're starting to jump it now, which leads us to the play that we're going to call here shortly, that we don't make a good read on that play. The ball should go to Cade right there. We make a misread. But what's even worse on that play is, Riker caught that ball and they called it incomplete. The ball is in his stomach, and they call this one incomplete, I think. And
they do.
And it pretty much, that's it. It derails our drive. We're not going for it with the lead down in our own territory here. We're gonna punt away, but that hurt. Yeah, that was not great. So that call doesn't go our way there. That ball is in his stomach.
Not a great punt here, and a little bit of a story on this one. So Avon, who is probably one of the best we've ever had, really smart kid, really gets a big picture of the game, completely hoses us on this one. He should block the first guy outside him right here. And he kind of soft sets and doesn't really do anything. So we came over to the sideline, and I said, Avon, what's going on, man? And if you ever doubted, that we're dealing with kids, his answer to me was, he goes, "Oh, coach, sorry, I forgot we were punting." And he goes, "I thought we were doing punt return, so I just, didn't want to screw up." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, next time, let's maybe block the first guy outside of you, which is him. If we hit that guy, we'll probably have a better chance of not almost having this kick blocked." So, just kind of I know those are things that our fans don't see or hear, but we are still coaching kids, and kids make mistakes, and that's part of the business. Yep. So,
I in a future at a previous school to this one because I work with the punters, and I still do believe it or not, I actually was a good punter too, but I've always worked with the punters wherever I've been, and I had a punter at one particular school that got a punt blocked because he actually held on to the ball. And the guys got right on top of him and he punted it. And I asked him, I said, what were you thinking? And he actually said, I thought I was just going to punt it through him. And I'm like, you thought you were going to punt a solid physical object through a human being's body. This isn't a video game that's not going to glitch out and go to the side, and he just kind of looked at me, and I'm like, okay, I can't right now. I just can't. I can't do this.
Another split flow zone here.
I think this is the drive they come down and score on too.
Yep. Another same side power.
Yeah, been a great play for them. Again,
Yep.
This is another nice one because that left guard, if you've noticed too, that left guard had almost never been a puller for them.
Yep, it was always 77.
They very rarely pulled him throughout the
They do it twice in a row here.
Yeah, and now they're going to him, and part of that is we've kind of picked up the tip that when they need something, 77 is the key to it again. But now they start pulling the other guard, which they really had almost never done. The good thing again here though, we're making them drive. We're not just letting them chunk massive yards. I think they get one right here though.
Yeah, this is the mesh right here to Fawcett, the Corsi under.
Yeah. It's hard to cover him in that much space.
Yep.
Like. So this is another one that's just like, oh man, this ball's not supposed to go to DeCourcy here, I don't think. We tip this ball and it falls right into his hands. If you watch this, Kyle actually bats this ball down.
I think it hits him on the helmet.
And then it literally falls right into his lap. This ball is probably going to get picked off, honestly, because the quarterback throws it too high.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle bats it, and it literally just lobs right into DeCourcy's hands, and they get a completion. Like, oh, come on now. It's football. It happens. Yeah, we're up against it here with their big offensive line. I know we've had a couple really nice goal line stands against them, and they kind of messed this one up a little bit here. But, realistically, you're not going to stop them from inside the 5. And their guys are way too big. And that running back was, again, a good player and a really fit kid. I mean, they're going to power that one in. So they get a penalty there, though, but it doesn't matter. He's going to pound this one right through. That's into the wind.
Yeah.
Good from about 40.
Yeah, over the top of the upright.
Actually, the week before, because it was windy, he missed the PAT the week before because it was so windy out. It had been a couple weeks of bad weather, actually. That was a tough playoff stretch of weather.
So 22-17 now we have the lead. I'll be honest, I really expected them to do another onside kick here, and I was a little surprised that they didn't. You can see we come out and line up, and that's Coach Etch right there. So I don't know what one means. Well, I think I know what one means now. One means he's going to kick it deep, but they clearly come out and look at our alignment and then make a call off of that.
I got to be honest, I was really surprised as well. But I think they're playing field position here.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get a stop and they can get their offense back out there with a short field, that's a big boost for them. So they
nice return here, but we clip, so it comes back.
The way things have gone, they definitely don't want our offense to have the ball near the 50-yard line again. So
here's the interesting thing that I'll talk about really briefly here that I talk about on the clinic circuit with our kick return, which is something we don't do a lot. But one of the things that I believe in is moving your returner where you think the ball's going to go. This is a little bit different example. We've got we are full hands personnel. Everybody in the screen right now is a wide receiver. These are my top 8 wide receivers right here. And so this is our kick returner. And, from week to week, we'll move him a little bit different this week because we had 2 D1 players, really 3 D1 players on our kick return team. But in a normal given year where we don't have that, I'm going to move our kick returner around from week to week, and you'll probably see some of that coming up in 2020, where our returner isn't always necessarily just going to stand back here because that's where he goes. So Luke Ely actually is our middle linebackers, our backup running back is our kick returner in this game. And so that's something we've done 2 or 3 times this year to kind of try to move Colby around to where we thought the ball was going to go. But we're also okay. I mean, Luke's a great runner.
He's a great,
as you can see here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't lose a lot. It's not like I'm putting some stiff back there. But, I'm not one of those guys that believes like, well, we're just going to put our best returner back there and hope they kick it to us, because a lot of teams aren't going to do that. Especially to us, they don't want us to give it to our best player, and in this particular year, and just let us tee off and run a middle return on them and go get them. So that's an interesting little strategy thing there for some coaches to consider, from week to week based on the looks they get. This is a big drive for us right here.
Huge. Yeah,
22-17, they've scored on our last possession. They've really run the ball well. Really felt like going out here, we probably needed to get something.
Yeah.
A field goal wouldn't kill us, would be fine to make it 25-17, but boy, I felt like 7 was what we really needed.
Yeah, a little quarterback inside zone here, just changing it up. We thought this was going to be a good play for us this week. We ran it really early in the night and then came back to it here as a change up. It's a nice little gain. Third and short, back to a heavy set here, and we just pound it right down the pipeline. Again, the linemen are doing a really good job, and Charlie lowers his shoulder pads here, and a really good look, and we just surge ahead for another first down. And again, the clock's moving, which is really critical here. I mean, we are really starting to chew that clock up late in the game.
Almost looks like they're reduced here. I realize we got the 2 tight ends in, but they might be in those 4 eyes. It's tough to tell. A little penetration there on the guard.
Yeah.
Here it is.
This is kind of one of the famed plays of I guess this game here, and we're 2nd and 10. I mean, we're still okay at 2nd and 10. It's not like that's a death sentence here, but like I said yesterday, this is something that Zach had come over to me and said, he made the poor read, but he said, Coach, man, that guy is really starting to cover that wide pop real tight. He said, I think we can run like a pop and go. And I said, well, I get it, and it's not. It's would essentially just be like us running a hitch and go, which we run every week and practice and all that. So, those are the things that happen when you get good player feedback and the coach has got his eyes open, and that perspective I have agrees with what Zach sees. Talk to Coach Large in the box, who's watching the shell, and talk to Riker, who's the one running the route, and say, okay, boys, can we do this? We didn't practice a pop and go, but it's essentially just going to be a hitch and go from that position. Can we execute that? And is that going to be open like we think? And Zach was very confident in it, I remember, and Riker had agreed. My perspective was similar, and Coach Large thought that we had it as well, or at least it was reasonable. And so I said, okay, well, when it's an appropriate time, we'll come to it. And, again, just such a huge credit to our kids of when I take a gamble on things like this, the play caller, if we don't complete this, we're 3rd and 10 and we're in trouble. And I look like an idiot, You're going to throw the ball 30 yards downfield in the pouring rain and in the wind. What's the matter with you? But I trust our kids, especially the ones that are veterans, that are smart football players like Zach, like Riker. I trust those guys. And there's got to be a 2-way relationship there between play caller and player. You've got to put the ego down and be receptive to feedback from the kids. And I've said 1,000 times, they're on the field and I'm not. They've got a different perspective than I do. And we've got to make sure that those 2 worlds can meet throughout the game so that we can keep getting ourselves in the best possible plays. And this is just another example of kind of following the player's directive, believing in the players and what they see, calling it, taking a shot, and then our players executing and, saving my butt. I mean, if this is not complete, this game could be different. The fan reaction could certainly be different, but I put trust in the kids, and the kids execute. And again, that's really what it all comes down to here. So huge play, great catch by Riker. I mean, he got drilled on that play. I mean, right in the back. So that's big time play for us here. Gets us down close to the red zone. Little quarterback outside zone. We get a little bit lucky here. Ball pops out and rolls out of bounds on this one. Zach doesn't protect the football, and the ball pops out and it bounces out of bounds for us, so they can't get possession of it. But that was a heart stopper there. That was tough. Come right back with the big boy, and he again. I mean, the holes that we're creating here, and this is kind of something I've said, and I talked about this in the pregame. What you're seeing, you can just kind of roll it, but what you're seeing here now is what happens to teams against us, in my opinion, is when you do things that you don't normally do, and when you try to do so many different things to slow us down, you're going to catch us every once in a while. And I talk to the kids about that. When you play teams that do things like this, they're going to get you. They're going to hold you to a 0. They're going to hold you to a 1. And that's part of it, because they're essentially rolling the dice on every play for that negative play, and they're going to get some. The problem is, though, for opposing defenses is when you do so many things and when you force your kids to do all that stuff in a couple of days of prep, they never get really good or efficient at what their job is. Like in a game like this, when you're playing so many different fronts here, your defensive tackle has had to learn how to take on zone combos, because that's all we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Your defensive tackle has had to learn to take on zone combos from a 3, a 2, a 1, a 2-eye, a 4-eye, a 4, a 5. He can't be good at that. I mean, he can't be. Unless your kid is just so supremely talented that it doesn't matter, But to me, that's where we get such a major advantage, because we can practice zone really simply against a lot of different stuff and get really, really good at it. Whereas your guy, he might have gotten 8 reps at 3, 8 reps at 4, 8 reps at 4-eye, 2 reps at a 5, 2 reps at a 1, 3 reps at a 2-eye. He doesn't know how to take all that stuff on, and they're going to make mistakes. And what you're seeing here is our offensive line just keeps plugging away the whole game. They're playing really physical, really well. And we're just ripping off massive chunks of yards late in this game. Here's another hole that you could drive a truck through from the goal line, and Chuck essentially just walks in here. I mean, this is a gimme. So, I think that's where a lot of people feel like, we got to get really creative here and get crazy to slow these guys down and stop them. It just plays right into our hands most of the time. And as time goes on, our linemen settle in, the game just starts to get a little out of control for you, because we've been able to communicate with the kids and problem solve. And, at that point, you start to find yourself in a lot of trouble. It helps us in the long run more than it hurts us, and you're starting to see that now. So this is their final drive now. They don't have much time left. I think they've got about 2 minutes or so left in the game, and we're 29-17. So you're going to see us back off a pretty considerable amount here, and honestly, essentially let them take time off the clock and take yards. The conversation here, you can, if you go back real quick to the start of this play, even our linebackers right now are playing at 6.5. We don't do that. Everybody is back about a yard or two further than they're supposed to be. The whole goal right now is no backbreakers. We cannot give up the one-off here and let them get back to a one-score game quick. They actually come out running, which had been their best plays of the night, and they're actually eating more clock with that. So this is good for us. So we get them in a fourth here.
About 4th and 4.
Yeah, we get them in fourth down here on that drop, and they convert this one, I mean, right through the window of two people. My mercy. I mean, this one absolutely threads the needle here. That is right past Hockett's hand and right underneath Cade. Oh. Yeah, that was that kid's only other catch of the night, actually. He only had 2. That was the other one. We're still getting good pressure. You know, we keep them short of a first down here, and same thing. It's a time thing at this point. Make them run plays, make them burn time off the clock. We've got to come up and be able to make a stop when we need to. Another mesh play, we cover it pretty well. Make them throw a bad ball here with some pressure, getting out of the pocket. This is the one they'd hit earlier. We just pass it off a little bit better. It's the exact same play they ran earlier.
Mm-hmm.
3rd and short, they come back with a split flow zone here and pick this up. Again, I think a big thing, you know, as well as a defensive coordinator here, what you don't want to do is say, oh, God, they're moving the ball on us. Like, let's call something to stop them. I mean, you're just leaving yourself vulnerable to what they want, which is lose your underneath coverage and let us hit the big tight end right in the middle of the field wide open, or let us get one-on-one coverage with your DBs, with our D1 kids, and you know, and burn you on a post. And teams had let them do that all year long. I mean, vertical after vertical and post after post. It was like, gee, many Christmas. So we're just going to stay patient and stay away. We're going to bring a lot of 4-man pressures, but we missed that sack right there. That would have been huge. But we're going to stay really patient, really smart, and not try to artificially create mistakes. We're going to try to make them make mistakes and just play good, solid responsibility football here. And we get them in a couple long yardages by doing that. So this is really good.
Kind of a curl down here.
You can see like Colby is essentially playing on the chains down here. I mean, everything is about keeping them in front of the sticks and just preservation at this point. So this one's 4th and short here. And they're going to run this one and pick it up again. Still not a touchdown. It's more plays they have to run, so we're all right. And they get a holding
penalty there.
That actually was their first holding penalty of the night. And I'm going to tell you what, probably next to that Cathedral game, one of the biggest issues I had was the amount of holds that went uncalled here. And you know, they've got some really good offensive line coaches. I think at the time, their 2 offensive line coaches were 2 former NFL players for the Colts. Yeah. And if anyone knows how to hold, and I've been trained that way as well as a player, because I made it to that level also. If anyone knows how to hold, it's an NFL player. And I'm going to tell you right now, these guys, boy, they could sink in those underhooks. And, I mean, no high school officials ever calling that. And I know what it is. It's holding. And, boy, we were getting held like that and more egregiously throughout this game. We finally get one here. So this puts them in 4th and long. And this was I was really surprised by this. I don't think this is maybe what they'd intended, but we had taken the other guys away so well. Their 4th receiver he was a solid football player, but, you know, in comparison to other 3, he was, you know, almost like a little bit of a placeholder. Like, you know, he didn't get used a whole lot and maybe had about 1 catch a game on the season. And we take the other 3 kids away, and they've only got about, I think it was 7 or 8 combined catches on the entire night among the 3 of them. And we actually kind of force them into throwing the ball to the one kid they don't use very often. And this is kind of the game winner, really. They run him on that kind of post, and we break it up, and huge play, huge play.
So we're going to get another interesting. We talked about this a little bit at the end of the Cathedral game the other day, but I do want to talk about the specific scenario. I know we briefly touched on it. So we're trying to run a clock out here, and there's
I got
think
a comment on that Cathedral punt scenario, by the way, as well. People really hadn't thought much about that as a possible scenario. So,
and we're going to kind of be in a similar one here. That I mean, the game situation is slightly different. What do you think there is when this drive starts?
We're at under a minute,
and he's calling timeout, right?
Yes,
if I recall correctly.
They're burning their timeouts. Yeah.
So we run. Third and long 3 here, and we get nothing. So now, if I remember right, there's, I don't know, 30 seconds.
Yeah,
probably.
we're right at about. I want to say there was like a high 20. Yeah, and so this is again another one of those scenarios where we had watched, and we've played against them as well, but we had watched their kicker. I mean, precision onside kick, everything in the book. And I remember you came up to me and said, get the punt team ready. And I said, no. I said, I don't think I want to punt this. And I bled the clock all the way down to 1, and I called the timeout. And I really didn't want to punt it. And if I decided to punt it, it still is fine. It's not a bad call to call your timeout, take every second you can, punt it away. So, the kids were kind of standing there, and obviously, the offensive linemen and all those guys were, they're like, Coach, go for it. We're going to get this. We've been getting it, and all that. And, Zach was really, really adamant about going for it. And again, I take those into consideration, but it's the overall decision I have to make of what's best. So, I do remember we had that conversation, you and I did, and I said, look, we almost got the last one blocked. And I said, and I got, Avon kind of had a mental lapse, but I said, the last one almost got blocked. And the only way they beat us here is if they block this punt. They get a touchdown in, 7 seconds here and onside kick it. And then they throw one of their patented, Hail Marys to the Hull kid or to Corsi, and they out jump us and we lose this game with 20 seconds to go. And I said, if we call a play, the best they can do is essentially let's say we take 7 seconds off the clock. They've got 20 to go. They're going to have to run a play. And if they catch it on the first pass, that's going to take 6 seconds, let's say. They're down to 14. Well, that's way less time than what they would have had previously. So I just thought the odds and the math were in favor of take more time off the clock and prevent something catastrophic from happening here. If we snap this ball, Zach drops it and falls on it, they get the ball at the 35-yard line. And for them to hit a one-off 35-yard pass in this weather was a really low percent thing, in my opinion. There was a better chance that in the rain we have a bad punt snap and or we drop a punt or a punt gets blocked because we almost got one blocked, and they get a cheap return. It deflates us. That kid comes out for an onside kick, which he is absolutely lethal at. And now you're talking about, grabbing the seat of your pants and holding on for the ride there in the back end of that game, boy, on the roller coaster. So to me, this was just, again, one of those things where as a head coach, I've got to roll the dice, and I've got to play a little bit of the odds in the math game that say, take time off the clock, low percent chance to one off from the 35-yard line or the 30-yard line. This is what's best for us right now. And I'll tell you what, so again, common thought here would say Charlie gets the ball on 4th and 4. I know that the last couple of games that we've watched, the Decatur game and this game too, it seems like maybe I've been a little tough on Zach. He's missed some reads and he's made a couple, bad throws and everything, but he's also played some really good football in between that. So it's not fair to to say he's played poorly, but I will say this. The one thing about Zach that made me make this call and give it to him and not Charlie was he is one of the all-time great competitors in the history of our program. And everything he did, from weightlifting to practices to game environment to conditioning, he was one of the all-time greatest competitors that our program has had. And when he looked at me late in that conversation and said, Coach, run the ball. Like, we're getting this. We're going to get this. Run the football. He didn't say he wanted it, but when I looked in his eyes, it was a no-brainer for me. I'm going to let Charlie block, and we've done this in a couple of games before anyway, but just in a different – but he was running it. He would have run himself to death to get this first down. And, not only does he make a great run, we get some good blocks up front. Charlie makes a great lead block over here, which is a big part of his value as a tailback because he's also a great blocker. We buy an extra hat against what's going to be, an 8-man box here with Charlie as a blocker. And Zach just rips this one right through that C gap there and seals the game. You can see Eric's hands are up in the air, all excited, and this is it. So we'll go victory after that, and a huge moment. Again, one of those things where a lot goes into that decision, in regards to why we do it, and then why I gave the ball to Zach in that scenario. But to me, I felt like that was the right thing to do. Use Charlie as a blocker, a little bit of a decoy. And, like I said, Zach was tremendous with his legs all the time anyway. But a kid who'd gotten you to that point and is just an exceptional competitor. There was no doubt in my mind that he was going to get us that first down. No matter, even if nobody blocked, he'd have gotten us that first down somehow. So, yeah, great game. A big win for our program and for our kids. On the road, in the weather, highly ranked team. A lot of adversity, a lot of mismatches, and a little bit of redemption. And we go get ourselves on that bus here in a second and come on back to the gates of Kelso Stadium and light a pirate flag on fire and kind of exercise our demons a little bit there.
Yeah, so that's that fourth down conversation. That huddle is probably one of my favorite memories, as long as I've been a part of that program. And hearing you retell the story is really cool too. You get in those situations where the kids go, Coach, just trust us, just let us go, and we can do this. Are really, really cool. And the overwhelming majority of the time, as far as I can remember, probably every time they've been right. In those situations when they happen, they say, Coach, let's do this. We can go do this, and we give them the authority to go do that, and they do it. Yeah. And I think that's a testament to the kind of kids that we have. And
like I said, you got to trust them too.
Yeah.
And they always have a big say and a big part of our program. And there's times where you've got to give them that little bit of extra leash there and let them go. So, the other thing about that moment is you got to realize that a couple of those boys on that field had played, 100 to 120 snaps at that point. And, when they're sitting there and you would think like, man, these guys got to be exhausted. How much is left in the tank here? And they're telling you, we got this. Like, let's go. Do it. Like, we've got it. Do it. Go for it. We've got enough left. We're going to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And you're playing teams, like I said, that have, 115 kids to pick from. And we're out there playing about 18 to 20 different kids a night. And other teams are playing upwards of 35 to maybe even 40, depending upon how your special teams look. And you rotate, like, it just speaks such a huge amount to what our kids have in regards to just character and toughness and a little bit of grit. So, Yeah, a very, very proud moment for me is to be their coach and, to go through a game like that, and what it meant emotionally. There were a lot of great moments, like you said, that have happened, but the smile on our kids' faces when that game was over, knowing how tough it was the year before to truthfully be, I mean, really, I know we were ranked high, but to be an underdog and to lose at home like that and kind of have that wound fester for a year.
Yeah.
To see our kids come out and redeem themselves like that and be so proud of their accomplishment. It was a really, really special night to be a part of. But I definitely couldn't wait to get back in the locker room and change into dry clothes. That's for sure. And I think a lot of people were on the same thing. So the post-game breakdown was pretty quick. Congratulated them, talked to them about moving forward. And I pretty much said, let's go burn that flag. And everyone just started going nuts and celebrating. And then it was like, all right, now let's not screw around. Let's go get dry and get on the bus and get home, because this is awful out here. Yeah, this is terrible.
I remember it was so hot in that locker room, and it was the greatest thing.
Oh, it was.
Standing in there, so the kids are getting dressed before the game and stuff. It was, I was kind of waiting as long as I could to put all my layers on, because it was legitimately hot in there.
Yeah.
But coming back in at halftime and coming back in after the game, there was no complaining about that, and it could have been 130 in there for all I cared.
It would have been welcome. Yeah, I went up to the press box after the game, and it had the heaters on in there. It's a beautiful press box. They had the heaters on, and I'm like, my nose and my face start tingling from the blood coming back to them some, and I'm like, oh, this is what it's like up here. This is what it's all about. Okay, yeah, it was that was definitely refreshing. But yeah, that locker room, I just sat in there in all my layers and just kind of thawed out there from the inside. It was it was. Boy, that locker room was hot, man. That thing was.
Yeah.
Whew. But anyway, yeah, great win, huge win for the program. Launches us off, like I said, sectional semifinal game. So we get to come back home then for the sectional championship game and play Anderson and win the sectional. And then, this was a major hurdle on the road to what was the 2018 state championship. So it's a big game early in the playoffs. I mean, really one of the premier games in the state, and quite frankly, one of the premier games of the playoff runs that we've had and in our program. But yeah, this game was one of the best games in the state this given week. And truthfully, like I said, against one of the best teams that we've overall gone against. That was a really, really solid football team.
Well, we'll start a new one tomorrow. Any idea where you want to go from here?
I've gotten a lot of requests to do some blasts from the past and jump all the way back to the New Prairie State Championship game.
Okay.
Some people want to do Snyder, but that one's going to take a long time. So we may have to do you and I may have to come up with a plan for that one as far as how we want to break that down. Some people have talked about Michigan City. I know we haven't done Valpo yet. So I know I picked the last one, so you can pick the next one and will surprise me tomorrow, I guess.
All right. That's what we'll do.
All right.
Well, Coach, appreciate it as always. And always in the same way, we'll take your questions. If you have any, shoot Coach Ralph a text or me or Twitter message or whatever, and happy to talk ball with any fans, coaches, anybody like that. So thanks, Coach. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All right.